blessing it is to be here. I want to start by sharing some good news. The good news is you. The good news is Unity Community of Central Oregon. The good news is the excitement and passion here. I see people learning how and being community with each other. And that's a beautiful thing. And I see an awakening here to our connection with each other and to our connection with the rest of life. And it's an amazing thing that we celebrate the earth on her journey toward healing and recovery and a new place of thriving each and every week. You are good news. And there's some bad news. The bad news is the news. It's easy here to talk about oneness. It's easy here to talk about how everything's connected and the divine presence and everything. And then we look on Facebook or on YouTube or on the television, and then there's that. Then there's that. And that might bring up questions for us. Well, where's the divine in that? How is that oneness? And we might have all kinds of questions about what that means and what can I do about that? I spent a lot of my life asking questions and looking for answers. I wanted to know how it all worked. I wanted to know answers about God. Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Which religion is the right one? What's the right way to pray? If you do it wrong, does it matter? Does it matter a whole lot? If you do it right, does it matter? And I looked for answers in Christianity, in one church, and another church, and another church. And it's amazing how they all had the right answer, and they were all different. Even the ones that followed the book exactly the way it said had a different take on what it literally said, which is confusing. Well, where's the answers? And I explored Hinduism. I explored Buddhism. Are the answers there? And there was a very low point in my life where nothing made sense. Nothing was working, and I was about ready to just give up. And either because I was ready, because the way things work out, in the middle of this really bad time, I encountered a shaman. And this shaman showed me a medicine wheel. And I'd seen those before, yeah. But because of where I was at and because of how it was presented, things started falling into place for me. And I was able to use this to understand myself and the world around me. And I could see how when I was out of balance, I could center myself with this wheel because it was a picture of my consciousness. It was also a picture of the whole world. And I started seeing how the different religions I explored fit into this wheel, and I started seeing how the different things all fit together. And I was also able to see how it applied with the world and how collectively we get out of balance, and how things show up in the world when we get out of balance. Many of us are aware of how, our rate of consumption is out of balance and what effects that has. It's also our energy. There's a metaphysical balance. And so by understanding this wheel and our collective, what we collectively focus on and how that shows up in the world, I wanted to share it with the world. I wanted everyone to get, look, it's all interconnected. It's for real. And I found out it didn't land the way I hoped it would. But I got a great job out of it. And so I make a living noticing where we are collectively focused by looking on the internet. And here's what we're looking at today. And then putting that on this wheel, and that tells me where we're heading. So I get to let people know, here's the news themes that are right on the horizon, because it's where we're facing. Here's where the market's likely to go because of where we're facing. And I get money for that. I don't tell them it has anything to do with a medicine wheel, because that wouldn't help. But in a very science-y way, that's what I do. And when it might not surprise us to hear that what I've been tracking for the last few years, there's been a whole lot of overheatedness, let's say, in our energies collectively. People have been overheated. And when that happens, it's not surprising to me, and maybe you could see this too, when people start acting out. And if we keep on doing that, it gets bigger and bigger, and the energy gets more intense, and wars start breaking out. It's all part of that same thing. So what can we do about that? What can I do about that? Jesus talked about when one of the things he said was about, before I take the splinter out of my brother's eye, I need to take the log out of my own. And that's usually used in terms of hypocrisy. Don't be a hypocrite. But there's also a metaphysical meaning to that. There's a metaphysical application. And if you're willing, I'd like to take a few moments to do a meditation, prayer, healing moment where we release some of what's going on with us and helping to do our part in shifting this. And you can have your eyes open or your eyes closed, whatever works best for you. And we're aware that spirit is everywhere, and spirit is within us. But sometimes it helps to use a mind-body connection, to use both of those in addition to our awareness of spirit, to deepen the experience of connecting with spirit. So we're going to use that too. So looking at what's been going on in the world, we see a lot of angry people. We see people blowing each other up. We see people fighting with each other. And maybe that makes us angry. Gosh, stop it already. Can you imagine Jesus in the boat telling the storm, gosh, would you just be still? That's not usually how we think of it, though, right? He's coming from a calm place when he says that. So when we're doing, I'm praying for peace, damn it, would you just stop? It might not work so well. So if you can put your hands out in front of you, and let's allow the anger that we have about what's going on to go into our hands. Anger we might have at somebody we know, at relationships we have, all of that. Just let it go. And then put your hands together like a snowball, making a snowball, and then press it into a pancake. And then just let that go on the ground. And let it all go. And now we're going to do that again with sadness. We see people who are hurting in the news. We see people who have had their lives just uprooted, and we feel sadness. We see the destruction, and we feel sad. And let that go into your hands. And there may be people you know in your life who are hurting. And maybe you're going through some things yourself. And let's let that sadness also move into our hands. And then let's put that into a snowball and compress it into a pancake. And then just let it go. Let it go into the ground. And then one more time, one last time with helplessness. We see all this going on in the world. We see people making a mess of things. We see people wasting resources. We see people just going on, hurting each other and blowing things up and destroying things, and we might feel helpless about that. So let that helplessness go into your hands. And there may be situations in your own life, people you know, going through hard times. And that brings up helplessness in you. Let's let that go into your hands. And then one more time, put that together into a snowball and press it into a pancake. And then let it go into the ground. And anything that remains that you want to let go of, just let that go. And now that we've let go of all that, lift your hands up somewhat And we're going to imagine divine light flowing into our hands and into our center. And just let divine presence flow into you. And then when you're ready, you could put your hands down. Maybe put your hand over your heart. And just take a moment to feel the presence. And to feel the peace. And now we're not going to try to do anything or change anything. But from this place of peace and presence, think of any of the people in your life that need some peace. And see that peace there. And any of your relationships that need peace. See that peace in the midst of those relationships. And any of those places that have been coming up for you and events in the world. See if you can find and see peace there. If it's hard to see the peace there, see seeds of peace there that you know will grow and flower. And take another moment to just be in this place of presence and peace. And as you return your awareness back into the room, if you feel there's any excess energy, a little too much, then let go. So I want to remind you of the good news. It's right here. You are the good news. I want to share a story, a couple quick stories that have told me that awakening is happening here. I've heard people talking about, they're feeling the presence of the divine in nature with each other. And that's heartwarming. And I recently heard people telling me about actually recognizing it. They're getting it, and they're seeing an awareness of it. And a few people recently have talked about being aware of the divine in the tree or the bird, being aware of them. And that's really cool. And what we've just done is we've contributed to peace in ourselves, in those we're related with, in the whole world. We just did that. And we were able to do that because we're aware of our connection with all things. That we're able to go with that idea because it's part of what we've come to know to be true. And I was going to talk about all of our relations. I'm not going to talk about that very much right now. I'll save that for another time. But I just want to plant a seed around that. As we become more aware of our oneness, as we become more aware that we manifest in the world what's going on in us and that there's a connection, I'd like us to consider that idea, not saying the words all of our relations. I'm not talking about that. Those are beautiful Lakota words, but it doesn't help to just take canned slogans or ritual and use them. It's the intent behind it. It's the awareness that I'm talking about. The awareness that my actions, my thoughts, my energy has an impact on my world. And when in my prayers, I am praying to manifest something, let's also be mindful of the impact of that. And not as a prayer right here, but just as an extreme example. If I'm so excited about the idea of abundance and prosperity and my newfound manifestation thing that I'm learning, and boy, I want everyone in my church to be blessed with a new television and a new car, and I'm going to pray for that. While that might be coming from a good place, there's an impact that has on our world. And as our authority grows, our responsibility grows. So let's consider all our relations in our prayers too. And if you want peace in the world, start with being peace. And then pray for peace. And if you want the world to be more in balance, first see if you're in balance. And then see what you can do with balancing the world. And remember that you are the good news. And namaste.